I wanted to talk about two men that were instrumental in the creation of Noble Ape, or were seminal in the creation of Noble Ape. When I was 19, I must have met this gentleman probably when I was about 16 or 17. And his name is Peter Wojciechowski, and he was a VR evangelist. Now, he was in his honours year at university maybe not when I knew him, maybe, the time frames don't seem to mesh, but I knew him from about 1993, 1994 through to about 1995. And he came down and visited me when I was living on campus, and I knew him beforehand as well. His brother worked with my mother. My mother was a diplomat. His brother was a diplomat. And I met him at a party one Friday night, I guess, in Canberra, Australia. And he said to me that what I should do is take all the software that I had developed historically and put it into one thing. And it should be centered around virtual reality. And the software that came together through Noble Ape, the software that led into Noble Ape, I've got a copy of the original manuals here of Noble Ape, which provides the illustration for the software. But unfortunately, it's not the one that you buy, basically. So I developed programming languages, antiviral software, games in general, and VR games leading into this whole thing. And they were the pillars, basically, of the Noble Ape development. The compilers created basically what would become ApeScript, I guess, in some regard, but also led to this notion of text editing and machine code generation and a certain aspect of machine learning, which was one of the things that I added to my compilers. And then the game software was pretty self-explanatory, the SchmuckQuest series of games and other games that I developed from that. The VR stuff were vector landscape programs that I developed thanks to my school friend Chris Jones. And also, as I've told on other places, podcasts and these kind of things, I travelled to Central Australia with my high school group when I was 15, I guess. And I got bronchitis. And I ended up in a hospital out in rural Australia. My grandparents came and collected me, and I was writing software in a notebook. I sent the notebook to a friend of mine in Canberra, Australia, and he and his father transcribed the source code, and I spoke to him on the phone. I was still recuperating in Adelaide. And my friend said, this is amazing, this software creates this landscape, and what are the discs that fly over the landscape? So, they're UFOs. I had to add UFOs to this landscape thing. So that was my background in programming VR-related applications, but my friend Chris Jones was just crazy about VR. I'm not doing this right at all. I'm just going to talk about Peter Wojciechowski and James Murata, but I'll throw Chris Jones in there as well. I had some amazing childhood friends that were all child geniuses, and I was just some schmuck. So people like Chris Jones and a bunch of other kids that I knew were all really, broke standardized testing smart. And then it was me kind of plodding along doing my thing. So Peter Wojciechowski said, put all this software together. Make all this software something that, you can call as your own, your card, your way of showing to the world your abilities and your self-worth, Do the software thing. So that happened when I was about 17. It stuck in my mind, gotta get all these bits of software together and do something. And then when I was at university, I knew this guy called James Murata, who he was at Oxford University for a period of time. But when I knew him in Canberra, Australia, at ANU, at the Australian National University, I'd known him through high school. In fact, his father knew my father. His father was the Prime Minister of Papua New Guinea for a period of time. My father had been to Papua New Guinea just before I was born. So James must have been born when my father knew him. Anyway, James Murata and I kind of palled around in high school. He was about 3-4 years older than me. In fact, when we were in high school, he was like my, I don't know, what do you call it, peer support advisor. He was my older mentor in high school. And then when I got to university, we took some philosophy classes together. He was already an honours student, I was doing undergraduate. And he said to me, these computers will never be able to simulate human thought. They'll never be good enough to simulate human understanding and these kind of things. And I thought, that's just wrong. Like, you're just believing what you're told by these schmucks. These fucking academic schmucks. Excuse my French. Excuse my French. So, I was like, no. Computer simulations, look, they may look primitive to you now, but let's try experimenting. Let's try actually making computer simulations more interesting. You know, let's try creating like deep computer simulations based on rich simulated physics environments and the potential for cognitive simulation through this whole thing. And James Murata was, you know, there were half a dozen other folk. I actually work with a guy now who was early on seminal in Noble Ape development as well with regards to the physics. So, you know, these people were interested in the thing that I was working on. And it was wonderful to have a group of folk, but I think James Murata and certainly Peter Wojciechowski, two guys that really motivated my thinking. Peter very much in a nurturing way, and James very much in a critical, almost like a dare, like it was a philosophical dare. I used to say that when I was interviewed by newspapers and stuff. Say, oh, it's a dare. You know, this whole Noble Ape thing's a dare. And that, you know, these two, but really look, tens of people who have been really amazing folks through various points in time in Noble Ape development. And my great frustration is that I really don't maintain contact with a lot of them. People just drift apart. And yeah, I'm still quite close with, well, I'm still friends and see his children develop and stuff. Peter Wojciechowski. James Murata fell off. I don't know what happened to him after Oxford. And we really didn't keep in contact. But I do reflect very heavily on these two individuals. And, you know, people like Chris Jones and my friend Darren Bolton, who, you know, I used to program with and wrote the Schmuck Quest series of games with, and my friend Will Reichelt, who was actually the guy who he and his father programmed in the code to see the UFOs and the 3D graphics. And, you know, all these people were all really instrumental. And I still maintain contact with my friend Alex Brooks. He's another character. And also, you know, William Hawkins, who I don't maintain so much contact with, but also, I mean, William Hawkins broke standardized testing. He was the archetype of the child genius. It was just quite extraordinary to spend quality time with these people. And yeah, they don't really have a lot to do with me now. It's actually interesting because when you follow your own path as an adult, sometimes your path goes in a completely divergent trajectory, but it doesn't in any way lessen the impact that these people have had and the importance particularly associated with Noble Ape that these people have had. So I wanted to have an opportunity to talk about two important people, but in talking about two important people, I've mentioned half a dozen other names of people that were equally important in the Noble Ape development. And ultimately, after this thing got off the ground through correspondence, Douglas Rushkoff, who I had the opportunity of seeing maybe 2 months ago as well, Douglas Rushkoff did amazing things with Noble Ape and wrote about it, followed it initially, and then after about 4 years wrote an article that was syndicated and, you know, referred to my work, well, referred to me with regards to a particular term, which I don't even like saying on video, but yeah. So a lot of folk have been involved with this thing. And I just can't list all the names. There are just so many people that have come through this. I haven't talked about any of the people at Apple and Intel, you know. They're also really important through this whole thing. But early on, definitely Peter Wojciechowski and James Murata, two names that I wanted to put out, who've been really very, very important with regards to this Noble Ape development.